Welcome to another edition of Consensus Unreality. Before we get to tonight's interview, I'm going to ask you to check out patreon.com/consensusunreality. For just $5 a month, you can access our full episode archive, 5 years worth that's only hosted there. Regular exclusive episodes, which are ongoing and exclusively hosted at patreon.com/consensusunreality. Written content, a Discord server, and if you join our print tier club, you get access to our printed Journal of Shells, plus other printed and recorded materials in the mail. That's really cool, so check that out. Thanks for listening. As always, enjoy the episode, and there's an extra hour bonus on the back end only on patreon.com/consensusunreality.
Welcome to Consensus Unreality, another episode, if you can believe it. Today we're joined by guest Kristen Phillips, who is a writer, artist, fabricator, and currently an event manager at the Philosophical Research Society in Los Angeles, California, which is Manly P. Hall's sort of legacy and a really important esoteric thing. So we're going to talk about all kinds of stuff today. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you for having me on. This is awesome.
Thanks for
looking forward to being here. Thank you.
Sweet. So I figure we could talk a little bit about your work at PRS first, and then get into some of the more specific weird stuff. Even how you came to be on this podcast kind of has some weird stuff about it as well, with
Right.
synchronicities and stuff, and weird stuff. But so I was out there recently, about a month ago now, and you showed me around PRS and stuff, and it's really crazy. What is it like kind of working there? And I guess we can get deeper into more specific aspects of the location and all that, but just generally, what's that like?
Working there is, well, it's been honestly like slightly overwhelming because we're so busy right now. I'm basically running the events department, and we average 40 to 50 events a month now. So there's just a lot to stay on top of.
That's insane.
Yeah. So yeah, it's like we've had Saturdays in the past few months where we have like 8 events in one day, just like back to back to back. So it's like in the day to day, it's just a lot to keep on top of, and just trying to stay, very organized and kind of make sure everybody has the information they need for things to go smoothly. Then at the same time, I don't know, I get this, the major benefit is just getting to spend so much time there, and exposure to the place, and like still discovering new things about PRS all the time. And I have these moments where I'm like, it's an 8 event day. I'm very stressed out, and then I have to kind of like pause and pinch myself and remember where you are,
Totally.
like look around and realize, what this place is and how special it is. And it's founded in 1934, and I think like the library and bookshop and printing press area, like that opened in 36, so it's about 90 years old, and it has survived kind of many incarnations at this point, and is still around and going strong, and you can't say that about a lot of places. So
no, especially like in that esoteric realm, it's kind of incredible that I feel like there's always like so much drama like with these groups, and there's always like so much, like once the kind of founder dies, there's like a lot of like hard feelings. So it's kind of incredible that it has survived intact, especially the library, which is crazy.
Oh yeah. For me, the library is the heart of the place. And it's, you know, it's cool that we're doing all these events and we have screenings and lectures and workshops and all kinds of different meetings. And but for me, it's like the reason we keep going is to keep that library intact and keep it accessible to people. It's just an amazing esoteric library. It's probably one of the most important esoteric libraries in the world, you know. So
Yeah.
for
I
sure.
guess that's super good news for like esoteric culture and our culture, that there's that many seminars and events. Like I kind of find trouble, like so much of it is online, and I guess I find trouble like yearning for that central place where there would be in-person, I don't know, educational resources or seminars, or even like the film stuff you guys do there looks incredible. So that, I mean, that, wow, it's like such a lucky center to have, I feel like. Super cool. Yeah.
Yeah, totally. People are still, you know, we do have online classes. We want to make things accessible to people who don't live in LA, but there's definitely a longing to be in one room, you know, meet up in person. So people definitely still want to attend classes in person and workshops and lectures in person. So yeah.
Yeah. Was I correct in seeing that did you have Rebecca Del Rio play there recently?
Mm.
She was there last weekend. Yeah.
That's crazy. How
That
was
was
it?
wild.
Mm.
That was amazing. Yeah. We screened Mulholland Drive and it sold out very quickly. And yet it was kind of a last minute thing to be able to book that and have her be there. But she did like a 10-minute medley of songs. She did like a little bit of the Spanish version of Crying. She did a little bit of No
Yeah.
Stars. She talked about David, made everybody cry. So
Yeah.
yeah, it was very cool.
They actually did that at the Philadelphia Film Society. They did the same lineup where it was a screening of Mulholland, and then Rebecca played like a medley of
Oh,
her
awesome.
stuff. It was incredible. Yeah, I was
Yeah,
totally blown away, obviously, but
that's
it
awesome.
was, yeah, it was amazing. So like, what was your exposure to Manly Hall before you started working at PRS? Because he's
Mm.
such a foundational figure in like 20th century occult esoteric thinking.
Right, right, yeah. I mean, honestly, I was pretty much just aware of the secret teachings of all ages, which
Mm.
is by far and wide probably his most well-known work. You know, the sort of encyclopedia of mythology and symbolism, rituals, you know, it's from wisdom traditions around the world. Um, and it's wild that he was 27 when that was published.
Yeah, it's crazy.
Yeah.
It's crazy, yeah. But yeah, I was aware of that. I had kind of like the reader version of that I think I picked up from um, I think I got it from the last bookstore in downtown LA.
Nice.
But that was really like all I knew and then about him. And then I went there. I went to PRS for the first time in 2022 with a friend who was visiting from out of town. And I actually didn't know that the PRS existed before
Mm.
then. It was my friend coming in from out of town being like, hey, I want to check out this place. And we went to the library for an afternoon and I had the same reaction that I now that I'm working there almost every day, I witness this several times a week where somebody comes in and says, I've been in LA for like 10 years and I didn't know this place existed. What the hell? You know, or I lived down the block for 25 years and I walk my dog past here every day and I never came in. And like, you know, just this feeling of astonishment that this place is here and still going. And but yeah, that was my first time at PRS and like 3 years ago in 2022. And that was also my first exposure to everything else Manly P. Hall had done, which is an incredible body of work. He, I think, published close to 100 books, and then he delivered, you know, like thousands of lectures across his lifetime. Many of them we have the original lecture notes for a couple hundred of them. A lot of them have been recorded, and you can find them online. But yeah, that was the start, like just 3 years ago, actually, of kind of starting to learn more about him and have a greater awareness of just how prolific he was. Like he wrote about or talked about just about every subject related to the occult. He studied tarot, he studied astrology. Yeah, he just kind of covered everything, which is wild.
Yeah, the
Yeah.
audio of the lectures was, I remember being exposed to that stuff when I was kind of first really like wading into the deeper end of like this stuff beyond just, paranormal intrigue and the kind of more surface level stuff. And Manly P. Hall's like encyclopedic breakdown of like so many subjects was like the perfect serving size to like
Mhm.
dip your toes into so many different subjects. So yeah, I have a really soft spot for him, and I have to go visit out there. But
Oh yeah, you should
yeah,
come
it's
out. Yeah.
like yeah. I mean, I was out there a couple of years ago, and I don't know. I guess I just didn't spend as much time in LA proper as like the desert and stuff. But
Mhm.
it's I guess LA has like a really rich occult history, and there's like there's a great theosophical library out there, right? And I think that was actually like sadly damaged in the fire.
It
Is that
did,
right?
yes. The one in Pasadena burned to the
Yeah.
ground actually. But there's
Holy
still
shit.
a Theosophy Hall in downtown LA that has some really amazing rare books, first editions, letters signed by Blavatsky, things like
Hmm.
that. So that place is still safe and standing and has a much lower profile than, PRS. I wish more people knew about it because it's really amazing building. That's been around since the early 1900s as well. But yeah,
Hmm.
it's worth checking out if you come out to LA. Check out the Theosophy Hall in downtown LA
Damn.
as well.
Yeah, I
So
missed that. I should have went.
yeah,
Is
Oh
it
well.
is the Agape Lodge still that's still out there too, right? Like that's the first American Ordo Templioris Lodge, right? I believe that's in like Pasadena, because that was Jack Parsons' outpost.
I believe that's still going. I've actually haven't been to that one. I have been to the Visant Lodge on Beechwood. That's still
Well,
Oh,
going with
cool.
the
yeah.
Dr. Stephen Haller. He still delivers sermons every Friday and does like Gnostic Mass, I think, on Sundays. And
Uh,
I haven't been there in a while because it overlaps a lot with my PRS schedule, but that place is really amazing too.
hmm.
So, yeah.
Yeah, I feel like there's so much other stuff even just that's still existing because like Philadelphia has this rich esoteric history, but a lot of it's kind of been absorbed into history and like the sites just stand. But I don't
Mhm.
know. We have like an incredible Masonic lodge, and I
Oh
guess we have
yeah.
a Rosicrucian order, like which is pretty crazy in Bucks County here. Yeah.
Oh
Oh,
cool.
the Beverly Corporation.
All right. Yeah.
The Beverly
Uh,
Corporation.
yeah,
Yeah. Of Pascal Beverly
yeah.
Randolph. Yeah.
Oh, okay. Oh yeah, yeah. Cool,
Um,
cool.
they're great. I mean, that's a weird place. It's like a really, really nice. Like I think it's a combination of like an alternative healing center and also the Rosicrucian chapel and campus and like learning center slash publishing house. It's yeah, that's still going too.
Oh
These
wow.
places, I guess, they they continue, but I do feel like there's a slight disconnect between like the last generation and this one in terms of keeping these like running.
Mhm.
Like I feel like there's a high possibility that some of them will just kind of close because nobody cares enough to take them over. So it's cool to see stuff like all this like well attended stuff at PRS and stuff like that is very encouraging because yeah, I feel like post internet a lot of these places might not have the same like mystique and so some people might not be attracted to them, but I don't think that should matter. I think people should keep going anyway.
Mm.
Oh yeah, totally. And I mean, I
Uh
feel like people like retreated to the internet for a while, but now they're longing to
yeah.
have in-person experiences again. And um, I mean, there's definitely some kind of like calculations we have to do with PRS in terms of our programming because we have these events that bring in a lot of people, but then, we have gotten the complaint from people who've been, in the PRS orbit for like 20, 30 years that they don't like how popular the place is getting, but it's it's like screening something like Mulholland Drive.
Right.
There are certain old heads who find that disagreeable, but it's something that helps us keep the lights on, so
Yeah, yeah.
yeah.
Mm.
And I don't think that's too out of line, like
Mhm.
at all. I mean, I feel like there must be I mean, there is like an auditorium there, so
Yeah.
Mm.
I mean, I'm sure
And
it was
some of the
more,
old
yeah.
theaters are kind of gone too, right?
Oh yeah. Yeah. We've lost a lot of like really amazing theaters. I mean, there's some that like, there's the New Beverly, which Tarantino bought and, revived the film program there. But it seems like if you don't have like a benefactor like that to
Yeah,
kind of, put money into it,
right.
these places kind of fade away. So,
Mm.
but yeah,
Yeah.
we try to do like a balance of, the esoteric talks, lectures, some like really serious education, and then we kind of have these events that are more angled toward, pop culture, but do bring people in and help us to, pay the staff. And it's a 90-year-old building and stuff is always breaking. So, there's
Right.
like constant repairs that need to happen. So it helps toward that for sure. So,
Speaking of benefactors, I remember, so I was out there and I saw that there's the Arthur Young Annex, and you
mhm.
had mentioned that you were looking into Arthur Young a bit more. What is the connection there? Like, what's the deal with, I mean, we've talked about him a few times on the show, but maybe
Mm.
if like, who is he generally in terms of PRS and
Mhm.
yeah.
So yeah, so in our library, we have this kind of second room that we call the lower annex, and it's named the Arthur M. Young Annex. And for a long time, I didn't know who that was, but learned that he's the inventor of the Bell helicopter. It took him about 12 years to figure out that design. But once he, you know, kind of figured out the design and handed the patents over to Bell and they started production, it seems like he shifted toward philosophy and studying metaphysics and kind of coming up with his own cosmology and theory of the universe. I mean, I am really interested in him. Well, I guess first off, I just am generally fascinated with people who try to develop their own theories of the universe and cosmologies. And I feel like every artist is actually doing that with their
Sure.
work, whether they're like consciously doing it or not. Like, yeah, you look at a person's, their work across a lifetime and sort of a cosmology emerges, whether that was something they intended to create or not. And one of my other favorite artists, like Helma Flint, I think very directly was intentionally, trying to create her own cosmology with her work. But but yeah, he was, somebody who came from a very practical scientific background, very much, dealing with hard physics, trying to defy gravity to get a machine off of the ground, but took a holistic approach to, he would not, it's the route of the perennial philosopher like Manly P. Hall, like did not reject anything, studied everything, um, examined everything. And I don't know, I find myself kind of aligned with, I guess, he was like a process philosopher. He studied Alfred North Whitehead. Um, and in like reading more about Arthur M. Young and like I've been mostly like listening to the YouTube videos because I have more time to listen to things right now than I do to read.
Sure.
Mm.
But but yeah, like listening to him. But I've also been reading a lot of Gurdjieff for the past 2 years, and
Nice.
I'm on like a second read through of In Search of the Miraculous, and it made me realize that I think in his own way, like Gurdjieff is also a process philosopher because everything with him is, his theory of the ray of creation, or even the Enneagram it's like a map of action. You can map anything onto the Enneagram. You can map any process. It's kind of like also like a sort of a process philosophy approach to reality. Um, but then like, I guess kind of another intersection for me with Arthur M. Young is the like the aviation aspect. And this is going to go in like 5 different directions, but uh,
He's got a lot of weird. He's like so connected to so many things. Yeah.
yeah.
So I would expect it to go in like a lot of different directions. Yeah.
Right, yeah. I think like Manly P. Hall, he was like just you know, had this like prolific life where he like did so much. But but yeah, the aviation aspect is actually relevant to my interest because I'm about to start flight school because I'm interested in getting my private pilot's license.
Huh.
Well,
Nice.
And then that intersects with another PRS character who's Claire Pierpoint, who if you search for PRS, like just put it into Google, all these images of the building will come up, and something you'll see like right on the first page is this granite sculpture that's in front of the building. It's like right at the corner. We're located at the corner of like Griffith Park and Los Feliz, and there's this granite statue right at the corner. It's a figure in an Egyptian headdress. We call it the scribe. He's kneeling on a stack of books and holding a plaque, and there's like a quote from the Upanishads um, on his back. And that was sculpted by Claire Pierpoint, who was a friend of Manly P. Hall, a great admirer of his, and basically lived in Switzerland. She sculpted that sculpture, which was like 2.5 tons, and another granite sculpture of another figure that's on the other side of the building, similar style, and just like donated them to PRS, like on her own dime, had them shipped over from Switzerland. And we have several of her other sculptures like throughout the building. But the connection there is she was also interested in aviation, and she was a pilot. She was a pilot in the like in the 1940s when she was in her 20s. She was like one of the first female pilots out there when that was still a very rare thing. So I guess this thread I've been kind of tugging on lately is the concept of the aviator mystic.
Yeah.
And there aren't a ton of them, but that is like a phenomenon, like people who
For
find
sure.
themselves interested in aviation, but also in like metaphysics and
Right. I can think of a
philosophy.
hmm.
few,
George Van
like
Tassel. Yeah.
uh Kenneth Arnold with the UFO sightings.
Yeah.
Uh Grant, no,
Parsons not quite, but
Jack Parsons, like kind of.
yeah.
Sort of, yeah.
I mean, he was interested in flight, I guess.
Yeah, it's
But
Mhm.
more like propulsion. Yeah. But
yeah, but
Propulsion, yeah.
I do, yeah, that makes sense. Like it does feel like a mystical impulse, right?
Mhm.
Or in some ways is kind of a form of magic, like depending how you define magic. But yeah, that's cool. Flight
Yeah.
school. Wow. Yeah,
Yeah.
better you than me. But yeah.
uh, Arthur Young, I think, was from Philadelphia, and he had like a philosophical society in Philadelphia that I've like tried to
Oh,
look up
really?
if there was any remnant of it. But didn't he? It's been a while since I looked at him, but didn't he have some like a kind of like a program for his method of like philosophical inquiry, like almost like Steiner, like the way that Steiner had, developed like a sort of method of study for anthroposophy.
Mhm.
Like I feel like didn't Arthur Young have something like that? I feel like a method of analysis. I kind of forget.
I mean, I'm just kind of recently getting into him, but I know he has like sort of the reflexive universe
Yeah.
sort of theory, and there's this like sort of diagram where he has figured out like the placement of like plants and animals and human life and molecules and atoms, and like it's kind of this like arrow.
Hmm.
But yeah, it seems like from what I know that, he was very into models, like building models as a means to understand anything. And he kind of had a tendency to like look at everything as a machine, like even like looking at the universe as a machine. And I think his sort of mode of thinking was that like every machine serves a purpose. Um, there's no machine that doesn't serve a purpose, and so the universe is a machine. It must serve a purpose, or something along those lines.
Huh.
Hmm.
But yeah.
He he's the one who supplied Robert Temple, who's also a really interesting figure, with the information that led him to write the Sirius Mystery, which
Cool.
has insane connections to the whole 23 Enigma and Robert Anton Wilson. And I feel like that kind of exploded as a sort of mimetic uh, esoteric object in itself, and that kind of emanates from Arthur Young, which is pretty interesting. He also was at the original 9 channeling sessions with Andrija Puharich at the
Oh
Round
yeah.
Table Foundation, yeah, which was like a weird collection of the way that like Peter Levenda will describe it in Sinister Forces is like a conglomeration of blue blood American families, because there's like, I think Arthur Young was married to Ruth Forbes at the time, and there's like an Astor there, um, and some other people who are very highly connected. But that's a whole really interesting saga too. The 9 channeling thing, obviously.
Oh
He's
wow,
just
I'm not too
yeah,
familiar with that.
yeah, crazy. I
Yeah.
mean, and the Bell helicopter, like, yeah, what a force. I mean, I feel like he wrote so much too. It's I love these figures who just pop up in a lot of different books. Like I even have seen in Levenda's new stuff, where there's like connections to, I think, Lee Harvey Oswald and Arthur Young and Ruth
Whoa.
Forbes, I believe. Yeah, like some weird disparate, or maybe not so disparate connection. I can't really recall how full that is.
Wow.
Yeah.
Huh. I guess.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm looking at the little blurb about Young's marriage to Forbes.
Because I think
Weird
Ruth
stuff.
Forbes was friends with Lee Harvey Oswald's wife,
Right.
and she like stayed with them for a bit.
Yeah. Oh, well, whatever. It doesn't mean anything.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. That's nice.
Um, yeah,
Wow.
so whatever happened with this artist, Claire Pierpoint? Is she well represented, or is she sort of just like someone who has these sculptures at PRS and or like, I hadn't heard of her, I don't think, until you mentioned it. Yeah.
Mhm. Yeah, I feel like she has kind of been lost to history, and I'm actually working on putting together a lecture about her that I'm planning to do hopefully later this year.
Nice.
Because we have a small archive of hers in the PRS library, and I had a crazy synchronicity when I first started work like getting into this, which I could tell you about if you're
Yeah,
interested.
of
Hmm.
course.
Okay. Um, so yeah, like about a year ago. So I started at PRS in March of last year. So about 2 months into the job, May of last year, we were just starting to launch our membership program, which is like, similar to like an NPR or PBS membership. You pay $10 a month and you get a tote bag and discounts on tickets and things like that. But my boss at the time in our weekly staff meeting and said, if anybody has ideas for any sort of perks that we could offer for the member tiers, like let us know. We'll try to figure it out. About a week later, I was working on a Saturday and I was walking through the parking lot and like walking past the big statue, the scribe that's out in the front parking lot. And I was thinking, what we could do is we could get a 3D scan of that statue and get it 3D printed as like a miniature. And that
Hmm.
might be cool to offer as like a perk for one of the higher tiers. So I pitched that, and my my current boss, Kelly, who was the uh, deputy executive officer at the time, mentioned to me that, oh, that sculpture was done by Claire Pierpoint. We have a whole bunch of her work in the library, and I can show it to you. So about a week later, we had the staff meeting in the library, and we were talking about this. We were and talking about the possibility of doing the miniature. And after the meeting, Kelly pulled out the Claire Pierpoint archive so I could take a look at it. And we have a couple scrapbooks from her, which are really amazing because it's photos of her work, photos of kind of like the spiritual teachers that she admires. Like there's poetry, there's quotes. It's kind of this like peek into her like inner world that's mixed with, and it's like a mix of her art that she loves, people she loves, you know, it was all in one place in these books. But then there was also a manila folder just labeled the scribe. And I open it up, and the first thing I see is this letter from Manly P. Hall's secretary at the time to Claire, talking about the possibility of having the scribe made as a miniature. And like just, you know, like kind of reviewing the logistics of it and how they would do that. And so I start reading aloud to Kelly, who's sitting across the table from me. And she says, "When's that from?" And I look at the date, and the date was May 22nd, 1984. And I was like, wait a second. I looked over at my phone, and the date was May 22nd, 2024.
Wow.
And I was like, that's today.
Yeah.
So yeah, we had just been talking about making this sculpture into a miniature in the staff meeting. And then we pull out the archive, and I open this folder, and there's a letter from 40 years ago between Manly's secretary and Claire talking about making the same sculpture into a miniature. And I'm like reading it exactly 40 years to the day that it was written. So I was like,
yeah.
that's, I don't know,
I
it
think
felt
you
like
guys
a
got to
yes.
make that miniature. Yeah.
Yeah. Has that materialized in any way?
It hasn't yet because we've actually put that miniature as a reward for the $5,000 tier. So we need a $5,000 benefactor to come along. And that
Yeah.
would kind of be enough money to kickstart the process of getting like a really good quality 3D scan done. And then
Right.
I have some background with 3D printing. I could do the 3D prints, and I can get molds made and all of that. So it's just like need to bring somebody in to get like a really quality scan done and clean it up. And then yeah, to cover like the labor, and then we could like get it printed at like any size really. And yeah, then we're off to
Right.
the races. But we need that 5K to get the project kickstarted. So that's what we're waiting on right now.
It's up to you, consensus unreality listener.
Yeah.
Someone should do that. That's
The
crazy.
low
Yeah.
price of 5K.
Yeah. Huh.
But
That's weird though. That's
Yeah. It's
that's a
incredible.
weird one. I mean, yeah. Date stuff like that is always really intense. It
yeah.
points to some weird cyclical thing.
Oh yeah,
Um,
totally. I mean, it felt like a yes at the time, and it also felt like I did have some concerns, like, you know, it's this place is Manly's legacy and it's Claire's work, and that was very personal to her. And like, would it be cheapening it to, you know, make a miniature of this statue and then to find out, oh, they were actually trying to do it. It was
right.
a project that did not materialize in either of their lifetimes. And then like the date synchronicity, it was like, okay, like you have our blessing. You
Yeah.
can you
Yeah,
can do this.
absolutely.
So,
Huh. Yeah, that's awesome.
um,
Huh.
but yeah, she's amazing, and I want everybody to know about her. So I enjoyed
Yeah.
talking about her, and I can't wait to do. And her daughter is still alive, so I've been communicating with her, and I'm just working on like digitizing the archive and trying to organize it. And then we're gonna have a chat, and hopefully she can fill in a lot of blanks, you know, tell me more about
Huh.
her mother's life, and yeah, gonna put together a presentation about it. So
Yeah, that's awesome. Yeah, I look forward to somehow seeing that because yeah. Is there much of her work out there like to see, or is it kind of not?
it seems like she lived in Europe in the second half of her life, and she actually didn't really start producing work until her mid 40s. Like she had
Yeah.
a couple of kids, she was married. It seems like she was being a mom, you know, up until her mid 40s. And I think when the kids went off to school, she was like, all right, I'm gonna finally
Yeah.
pursue this. And she went to art school for a couple of years, and then yeah, the family I think ended up in Europe because her husband was in aviation as well.
Huh.
So I think that's how they ended up over there. But yeah, she, based on the scrapbooks, it seems like she exhibited her work quite a bit in her lifetime. She's in a lot of gallery shows and group shows, and her work was, you know, like there's photos of her sculpture being installed in various places around Europe. But I feel like, yeah, it's one of those people that just kind of was lost and faded. They didn't make it into the history books in yeah, they've kind of faded from public knowledge, but we still have
Yeah.
5 or 6 of her sculptures at PRS, and I feel extremely fortunate that we have this like little archive that's the record of her life. And so yeah,
Yeah.
I would love to give her her flowers and kind of tell everybody about
Totally.
her. So,
Helma
Yeah.
Helma Clint was lost like that as well, right?
right, for a very long time. Yeah,
Up until
yeah.
that retrospective, only a handful of years ago, and kind of reminds me of Paulina Peavy too, who
Oh
was a
yeah.
California-based painter and like
Hmm.
kind of mystic with a little bit of like early UFO contactee stuff in there.
No, yeah, she was like a channeler, and she made these amazing masks. We have her
Oh
book
yeah.
in the PRS bookstore. I think we had an event
Yeah.
about her maybe like 2 years ago. I missed that one, but yeah, we had an event talking about her at PRS. Yeah.
She's awesome. It's kind of interesting
Yeah.
how people start when they start doing their art like later in life. Like what Louise Nevelson didn't start till she was like in her 40s or maybe 50s. Um, and I guess that's kind of a different story because of the level of success she attained. But it it is I kind of like that. It's reassuring
Yeah.
yeah, that you can still kind of do whatever you want or like change mediums
Exactly.
entirely.
Oh yeah, totally. For sure,
Um,
yeah.
huh. Yeah. Did she do that bust of Manly Hall in the library, or is that someone else?
She did not do that one. There's a signature on the back. The back this it's signed Lloyd on the back,
Hmm.
that one. So yeah, that was not her.
Yeah.
But across from that sculpture, there's a sculpture of Gandhi, which Manly P. Hall actually did. Like he got into
Yeah.
sculpture for a while. And so that's another part, like dimension of the talk that I want to get into is because they were close friends, and also Manly was an art collector and an art subject and an artist in his own right for a short period of time, and got into sculpture for a while. And the Gandhi sculpture is really good. I kind of wish
Yeah.
I think he just didn't have enough hours in the day to do everything,
Right.
but yeah, we kind of talk about that dimension of his life and his thoughts on art. Like his thoughts on art dovetail really beautifully to Claire's work. So there's like a natural like harmony there between his writing and her work. So
Yeah, that's awesome. Um, yeah, it's kind of weird. This is a slight tangent, but kind of related to like it's kind of weird that you're doing this project of like revitalizing the image of this woman's work, this artist, where it's kind of like how when I first met you, that's kind of what I was doing with the Macer story
oh
stuff.
yeah, yeah.
And it feels like a very similar impulse to try to like gather something together to like present this person as a
Mhm.
worthwhile artist to remember.
Right, right.
So it's kind of funny listening to you talk about that. And I was like, yeah, yeah, totally. And then I'm like, oh, that's because I have like similar feelings about this other thing. Um, I feel like I talked about it on the show before, but so I guess just to tell this story for our listeners or the context of this, it was so you had been following the Apport page or something, and you had come to meet a friend of yours.
Yeah, my friend Clay. That was the first time we were meeting in person that day because
Yeah.
he lives in New Jersey and I was living in Pennsylvania. Yeah, so yeah.
And so you came to the shop, and I like overheard you talking about this book that he had found, which was Dr. Fu Manchu Meets the Lonesome Cowboy by Eugenia Macer Story. And he was describing how he had found this really crazy book in a record store. And and it was just like insane. So that's how I found her book in a record store, which is not super typical. And it was that book. Um, and I was kind of like listening to him talk about that, and I was like, oh, I wonder what that is. And then it turned out to be her, and it's like I've never met maybe one other person who ever knew who she was
Mm.
in like the 10 years of kind of trying to archive her work. And so anyway, that was just like this crazy weird thing where it almost was like this weird doppelganger situation where we had these like mirrored like introductions to this person's work and sort of feelings about it. So it's actually very scary. Like I feel like these things are often kind of unpleasant. But then in hindsight, it's like very kind of wonderful,
Mm-hmm.
and weird. So it's weird to see someone, and again, it always sounds like less when you're telling it, but it felt very strange. And like 3 weeks later was when this huge cache of paintings of hers kind of was like given to me. Um, and so it was just this crazy little vortex of synchronicity around that situation. And then I don't know what any of that means, but that's kind of like how, other than through just like the bookstore, how we ever kind of got into contact, which is kind of weird. Anyway, that's kind of the context for that. Yeah, just like keeping these kinds of artists around or like in the conversation, I think is, I don't know, important, or it feels important. I don't know.
Oh yeah, I think it's super important. Yeah. I mean, is there
Um,
something in particular about Eugenia Macer's story that like drew you to her, or that
no,
grabbed you even about that first book, or?
no, because I was looking for, at the time I was like looking into like the connection between UFO experiences and poetry. Like that was like my little like hobby horse as a, I guess like an undergrad. It was like my senior thesis in college
Oh, cool.
was to like write about this. And so that book kind of like struck that chord really hard. Uh, and just like the way she was writing and stuff, and like this totally bizarre publication that's like, and just the whole aura of it. And this was like 2 months after she had died. So like a lot of her
Mhm.
stuff was like still up there. And if I had found it a year earlier, we could have like, I could have talked to, her and like kind of gotten to, so it's kind of a little weird and sad, but
Mhm.
it also feels very charged in that way. So there's no real particular reason. It's just like a very innate sympathy or something with her point of view and work that is hard to put into words, which I think that's not uncommon for this realm, but also art and also anything,
Mhm.
Yeah. So yeah, it's interesting. Um, and then you did the sculpture for the cover of my book too,
Yeah.
which is cool. So maybe I was like, who could make a stone with an eyeball on it? And I remember seeing your sort of, what do you call it? Just like a like fabrication, or your like special effects work?
I mostly call it fabrication. Yeah, I've done some special effects, but yeah, I feel like fabrication's like a better general term.
Yeah.
But yeah.
And so that seemed perfect. And I still have it. I tell people that there's a camera in it. I have like near the checkout at my store, and I tell people
Oh, nice.
it's recording. Um, but yeah, if you can't picture it, it's a small boundary stone with like a robotic eye in it. Maybe I'll post a picture of it on the Instagram or something. But are you, so like how is that like a part of your practice as an artist? Like, do you think of that as like a job type, like were you doing that like as a job type thing, or is it more of like a creative pursuit, or both, or how does that factor into your life?
Um, I guess it's a little bit of both in that, I will take, I mean, right now it's PRS is kind of swallowed up my life. So
Yeah.
mostly doing event managing right now. But in the past, I would take, there were certain jobs I would take to pay the bills. Um, and but that would also help to always kind of like feed the provide the time and the space for me to do my own personal work that I felt, super passionate about. So so yeah, definitely a mix of both. But yeah, I've always had, no matter what I've had going on, I've always had like personal creative projects like cooking in the background, sometimes several at a time, like I do right now. that I'm like
Yeah.
struggling to finish. Yeah.
I was looking at your Instagram earlier, at some of like the earlier stuff you had done. It's like pretty wild stuff. Um, like, so what would your like main, I don't know, how would you describe what your work is for the people listening? And anyone can check it
Mhm.
out, your Liminal Credential on Instagram. And there's a lot there, but yeah, how would you
Mhm.
describe it aesthetically, maybe?
Aesthetically, I mean, I feel like it's kind of challenging because there's I mean the younger version of me, you can find work on my Instagram from about 10 years ago. And I think at that time, 10 to 15 years ago, at that time I was very interested in I think like anomalies in nature and kind of like excuse me, being inspired by nature, but like using that as I guess a jumping off point to find new forms. Um, so there's like, for example, the birdipede, which is a bird with like no face, but about 10 to 12 sets of legs. Um, and I made a bunch of those. They are all in private collections at this point. But so yeah, that's sort of the older work, like very much inspired by nature, but sort of a dark aesthetic and approach. Um, but yeah, definitely like in the past 5 years, things have shifted a lot. And excuse me, that older work is like, I don't know, it's like a dead avatar that's kind of floating around out there.
Yeah.
So it's like a former self that I sometimes feel like a little cringe about having that work floating around. But and I find um that in the past like 5 years or so, I kind of went through like a kind of spiritual awakening experience in like 2019, 2020. And now I find that when I make a piece of art, it's almost just like a spell or a ritual for myself. And by the time I'm done with the work, it's like I have changed so much that I don't even like the thing that I made anymore. It's like not me anymore. It's like that
Yeah.
belongs to the previous version of me. And um, I've gotten into like arguments with friends and people close to me because they're like, "You just finished this. You just spent 3 weeks on this, and you were obsessed with it. Like, what do you mean you hate it now?" And I'm like, it's just like, it's not me anymore. That was the me from 3 weeks ago that
Yeah.
was that was working on it. And so yeah, that's been kind of like the challenge with making art in the past few years. But it's like, I don't know, it's cool to have these sort of artifacts of a former self and see kind of like
Yeah.
where I've been. But it's also challenging in that like excuse me, in terms of like actually putting that work out there. And it's like I don't want to because it's like, oh, that's not me anymore. I've already, moved on.
Yeah.
So
No, I know what you mean. Yeah. I mean, I think anyone that makes stuff probably can relate to that because, I mean, but you can't get where you're going without having made it either, I guess, too.
yeah, yeah, I've learned it's kind of necessary to, it's the process, going
Yeah.
back to Arthur M. Young, we're in everything's an ongoing process. So it's part of making that art is part of the process to move to another place.
Yeah.
But yeah, it can be challenging to feel like you're always kind of like chasing this moving target that
Yeah.
keeps something that keeps receding from you, but also being aware that it's yeah, there's like a transformation with each art project that happens. So
Yeah. I mean, I think that's a good way to think about it. I mean, aside from like immediately like disavowing all of your work, which I feel like I relate to, but which I also, as like a consumer of other people's works, it's always like uh it's interesting when they do that because you're like, well, damn, I like it.
mhm.
Um, but I totally, yeah, I totally know what you mean. Um,
it can be like a weird tulpic remnant of the idea itself, because you never
Yeah.
actually are able to capture the original idea. Uh, so it can almost be like hard to look at that because it's like
Yeah.
a I don't know. I guess maybe to the artist sometimes it can't fulfill that the original like fire of the idea itself.
Yeah. It's like making fun of you when you look back at it.
But it's cool because it becomes something else, I think, often.
Right.
Because you may
Yeah.
have an idea for what to do, but then obviously the result becomes its own thing that is apart from the original collection of ideas that sparked it to begin with. Yeah.
Huh.
Yeah.
Yeah. Um, it
Yeah.
reminds me
I
of
think it's
that.
always, oh, sorry, go ahead.
You go
Oh,
ahead.
it's like, it's always kind of like you plus time. Like,
Mm.
the,
Uh,
like, I don't think I could ever actually make like a bird of heat again, because that was like me plus
uh,
the time that I was in. So it's
yeah.
interesting to have these things as, yeah, like exactly as artifacts, as topic artifacts of this is how I was at a certain very specific time, and
Yeah.
that person's kind of gone, but this is, yeah, what remains. So
Have you guys ever seen that? I think his name's Victor Arici. He's like a Spanish filmmaker. He made the wonderful film Spirit of the Beehive, which is like one of my favorites. But I don't think he did too many other movies. But he made this one about this Spanish artist. I think it's in the 70s or 80s, and he's just painting this lemon tree. But he's like painting this lemon tree for like 10 years because the tree keeps changing and like
Huh.
the shadows are changing, but like his idea of like having the perfect painting keeps changing too, and like what he's trying to achieve. So the movie is just this conversation about like trying to make this painting. It's pretty incredible. Yeah.
that sounds
Yeah.
cool.
I don't even
What's it
remember
called?
that. I don't know.
Oh,
It's been a
okay.
long time. It's probably been 20 years since I've seen it. So
Wait,
the
what was it
lemon tree
called?
is changing in my head. I don't
Mm.
know.
You don't know what the movie's called?
No, I don't know.
It's the guy
Gotta
who
look it
directed
up.
Spirit of the Beehive.
Yeah.
Oh, I thought that's what you
Okay.
said it was
He only
called.
made like a few movies. Spirit of the Beehive is like a
I haven't
revelation. I
seen
don't know
that.
if you've ever seen that. Yeah.
I haven't, no.
I haven't seen that one now.
Yeah. Beautiful film.
Weird.
Um,
Um, yeah. So you're working on a sort of long-term graphic novel as well, right? What's what is that?
yeah, that was kind of my pandemic project that has been lingering for a few years now. I'm actually very close to finishing the first volume of it, but it's called The Membrane. And it originally started as I started writing it as a TV series. Probably started seriously working on it around like 2016. And so I had several episodes written, and then I had outlines for actually like 3 or 4 seasons, so like a very long story. But when the pandemic hit, that was also like my dad died very suddenly, like 3 months before the pandemic. So I think the state I was in at the time was just like ready to go hide away from the world for a while. And it seemed like the right time to, I've been thinking about turning it into a graphic novel for a while. And like, yeah, when in March of, yeah, 2020, I just decided, okay, this is what I'm going to focus on right now because I have the time and the space to do it.
Yeah.
Um, but the original idea was to uh, illustrate the whole thing by building models and miniatures and photographing them, which to me was exciting because my background was, you know, special effects. I'd worked on models and miniatures for film, and yeah, that seemed like a cool way to do it, but it's also like the hardest, dumbest way to do it because it's so labor intensive, you
It
know.
seems crazy, yeah. It seems
Yeah,
so hard.
yeah. It's like, like when Leica makes a stop motion film, they have a crew of like 70 people making all the models and miniatures.
Right.
This is just like me in my garage trying to do everything. So it took forever to make like 10 pages, honestly.
Yeah.
And I realized, oh, I'm going to be working on this until I'm like 70 if I don't figure out another way. But what I decided to do was kind of restructure it as a like an illustrated novel, and so kind of broke it down into chapters, and there's kind of like an illustration for each chapter. Some of them are still three-dimensional, some of them are 2D. It's 2D. So, but I'm about honestly about 10 pages away from finishing it, and then I have to like, do some editing and put it together and send it to, I think I'm just going to self-publish. But yeah, just getting those last
Yeah.
10 pages of the first volume done has been like the hump that I've been trying to get over for over a year, and I just have not had the time to bring it home. So that's kind
Yeah.
of where it's at right now. But it's like a sci-fi set in the near future, and it's about uh, this kind of group of spiritualists. It's kind of loosely based on like the Lilydale community in upstate New York,
Huh.
but imagine them living in an abandoned hockey arena in like Ohio in like the 2050s, kind of in a semi-apocalyptic world, and they're trying to um, kind of like, again, going back to Arthur M. Young, it's a mix of like science and spiritualism, like trying to use technology to like boost their signal to the spirit world and stabilize it. And they kidnap a woman who they think has a brain implant that could help them with this aim. And the implant turns out to be not what they thought it was, and then things kind of start to like get chaotic and out of control from there. So that's kind of the idea for the story. Yeah.
Oh yeah, I like it. I mean, yeah,
Yeah,
it's great.
definitely. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm going to the Lilydale thing
Oh,
this
cool.
year, the
Yes.
symposium. Yeah. I've never been. Have you been there?
Yeah, I went in 2022 just for a few days.
Nice.
I haven't been to the symposium. I'd love to go to the symposium, but I just went for a few days to check it out. So
Yeah, I'm looking
um,
forward to it. I'm a little scared.
really,
Does it feel like I don't know. I feel like I'm like real open to getting messed with spiritually right now. I don't want like I hope that
oh
It's
really?
it's positive. Or like like because it's like a healing and very spiritual place too. I'm
Mhm.
afraid of ghosts.
little devils. Yeah,
Yeah, like the devil coming to me when I sleep.
you should be.
A ham.
Yeah.
Uh, but so you didn't get that vibe up there.
I mean, it felt very positive and warm and
Hmm.
loving there. And
Yeah,
it's funny. I don't know, are you going to stay in Lilydale, like at the hotel, or
I think so.
okay? Yeah, it's
Yeah.
funny. There's like signs in the lobby of the hotel, like no seances in the hotel.
What? Why not?
There's got to be somewhere where you can have, no seance zone, I guess.
Of all places in the world, that's where they don't let you have it.
Well, there's like a
I
million
mean,
other places there to get a seance going, right?
Yeah,
yeah, they
that's
probably don't want
cool.
a bunch of like amateur randoms coming in and having seances
Yeah,
in the
Right.
hotel and opening up portals and all that, that they
fair enough.
don't know how to
Yeah.
close. And
Yeah, that's true. I guess you don't want like everyone coming there and just like that's where they go to do their seance and
mm,
they're bad at it. Um,
yeah.
huh. Yeah.
Did you you don't have to disclose too much, but did you get involved in any of the like activities at Lilydale? Like, did you meet with
Um,
a psychic or anything?
I ended up not meeting with a psychic personally, but I went to some of the like they have these public sessions where you sit outside with a large group of people, and they'll have four or five mediums come up and kind of call people out of the audience and
Yeah.
say, I see someone behind you with a blue shirt on. He says, remember when we used to go riding in my truck, like things like that, they'll like kind of
Huh.
have messages for people in the audience. I forget what it's called. It's like what those sessions are called, where it's like, yeah, the public.
Yeah.
So yeah, I went to a few of those and just I was only there for like a brief period of time, and um, yeah, still I think I was still kind of still kind of very much grieving my dad at that time. I think I was a little scared, honestly, of like what might
Yeah,
happen.
understandable, totally.
did you get a message from anyone, or was it
I, I did not, no.
no?
No, yeah, did
I'm
not get a
always worried,
message.
like at one of those things, like if they even like if they do say something to me that it's going to be bad, or if they don't, that they're like, well, I don't want to tell this guy bad news. So if they, so I'm like, I'm screwed either way if they say something or not. I guess the only way out of that is if they say something and it's good.
Yeah,
Um,
it seems like they always have just super positive messages
right. I
for
know, but I
everybody.
don't. Yeah, like I don't want them to like be scanning the audience, like make eye contact with me and then quickly like move away. Because like
Somebody's like bullying you from the other side.
there's like a yeah goblin on my shoulder or the devil with a pitchfork.
Gonna send you to the emergency Reiki room to get something removed.
That would be so sick if they had like an emergency room there and they had like a
Yeah,
Reiki doctor.
spiritual ER, dude. On call
Exorcist
Reiki.
waiting.
Yeah,
Yeah.
That's a good idea for a sitcom, yeah.
yeah.
Um,
Or a
Oh yeah.
business, honestly.
or a business, yeah.
Yeah.
Huh.
It's
Um,
like we're making a new LLC out here, folks.
yeah. I remember at PRS, you had that little David Lynch shrine. And you said that people had been coming to see it. Has that been like, what's the like, is there a relationship between like the Lynch thing and PRS? Like, do you know if he had ever been there or like what the deal is with that?
Oh, that's a good question. I don't know if he ever came to PRS, but yeah, we actually had to take that down recently. I think we're going to put it back because we have a tarot exhibition right now in like
Uh,
all of those
Mm,
cases with all
cool.
these really amazing like vintage tarot cards from an
Super
event
sick.
last month.
Yeah.
But
yeah.
so that's what's in there right now. But yeah, we actually put that together back in January, right after David passed away, and that was right around the same time that the fires in Los Angeles happened. And Carl Struycken, excuse me, Carl Struycken, who plays the Giant,
Yeah.
actually lost his home in the Eaton fire. So we pulled together like a benefit kind of at the last minute. Like it all came together very quickly, and we had him in person along with Kimmy Robertson, who plays Lucy, the actor who plays the Woodsman, and we screened episode 8 from The Return. We had a few other people from episode 8 there as well. So, but yeah, that we put that together that exhibit as part of that event, and then yeah, it was so popular, people were coming just to visit that, so we left it up, and we all loved it as well. So, but yeah,
Yeah.
I don't know if David Lynch ever came to PRS. That's a good question, or if
I
he
feel like he must have. Although it does, it seems like a pretty big city too. So I don't know. Maybe
right.
not. Um,
Yeah, who knows?
but he seemed so interested in that kind of stuff, even just the meditation aspect. You'd think there's some kind of crossover, but
You
who
would think,
knows?
yeah, yeah. I mean, yeah, they were definitely like Manley was kind of in the world of Hollywood. Yeah, I had
Yeah.
friends like I learned recently that I don't know if he ever met Elvis, but he sent Elvis a copy of Secret Teachings, and Elvis was very into reading
Yeah.
Manly P. Hall, and I guess that's
Yes.
covered in the new Occult Elvis book that just came out pretty recently.
Right.
He also knew Charles Bukowski. Bukowski actually got married at PRS. That photo
Oh,
is in our display case as well. And Manley like officiated the wedding. He knew Bela Lugosi. He hypnotized Bela Lugosi for one of his roles. There's
Wow.
some photos of that.
Yeah.
So yeah, he was kind of well known, and there's that overlap of Hollywood stars who had an interest in the occult
Right.
and knew Manley, and yeah, read his work, and
Huh.
yeah.
That's cool. I love that. Yeah, I guess it's still kind of fresh in my mind, but that whole like when I was out there and like looking for books and stuff and just kind of getting the sense of it, I kind of that the amount to which Hollywood and like the esoteric crossover became it not it's something I knew that like makes sense. Even just from like what the nature of film and the nature of acting even are kind of like occult practices, but just like the proximity of all of it and like I don't know, there's just something about it that stuck with me more, having like kind of more purposefully explored that connection like in the place itself. Yeah, I mean, how long have you been even out there for a little while? Have you had like any weird Hollywood occult experiences?
Hmm. Um, I wish I could say that I did. I've been out here since like 2013, so I guess about going on 13 years. 2012, 2013 is like, yeah, when I started coming out for work and then finally moved out. Um, it's like I can't point to a specific experience, but there is, I don't know, like an energy here that
Yeah.
is different than other places. And I think, I mean, I thought I would hate this place by now, honestly. I didn't think I was going to make it 10 years here, but I've really like fallen in love with LA, and she's messy. She's a messy bitch. She's chaotic, but yeah, I love living here and for all the challenges that come with it. But yeah, I think there is sort of like, yeah, an energy and an undercurrent here that is hard to, it's a little ineffable, but I think it's what draws a lot of people here and why there's like such a history of, you know, all these organizations that have kind of come and gone, and some of them are still around. But yeah, there's something that draws people to the city. Yeah. And I
Yeah.
mean, there's definitely like energies at PRS, which like there's a room above the Arthur M. Young Annex that has like a very strong energy in it. And every time I don't have to go up there very often, but when I do, if I spend more than like a minute in there, when I come out, I feel like a mix of like nauseous and drowsy, honestly. Like it's
Huh.
very strong.
Yeah.
And
Um,
there's some stories about PRS being haunted, but and I've seen some interesting security camera footage of orbs and things, but yeah.
that makes sense. Yeah, that's wild. I bought this little map. It was like a road map, from 1935, of LA, and when I was out there, and it's kind of crazy. Like, so I guess PRS was there like just a few years later. Um, and
Probably like, yeah, being built around that time. Yeah. So
there's
yeah.
nothing like the map is like, come look at the alligator farm, and like like stay in. Oh, there's like this the Cecil Hotel. Like, there's a couple like things that ring a bell, but yeah, just like taking a moment to travel out west for a while has really sent me down this like Western America like rabbit hole because it's so new and so
Oh
weird.
yeah,
Um,
totally. Yeah.
yeah, there's something weirder about it than like the really old stuff out here or like in Europe or something where it's like truly old because it feels old out there too, but it's not.
Mhm.
I don't know.
Right, yeah.
Um, not, I guess that's not going anywhere. It's just it made me think of how young parts of the country are. Uh,
Oh yeah, totally. Yeah. Yeah, it's like you look at photos of like the San Fernando Valley, which is just like end-to-end strip malls now. And like, yeah, less than 100 years ago, that was all like farms and orange groves, and none of that was there. It's wild to think how quickly things have been constructed, and they feel now like they've been there forever, but they really have not been. They've been there like 50, 60, 70 years, you know. Yeah.
yeah. Have you seen that movie Under the Silver Lake?
I have. I saw it a few years ago. Yeah.
Yeah, that I like that movie. I feel like we
Yeah.
talk about that all the time on this show, because it's such a good portrait of like the conspiracy mindset.
Oh yeah, totally. Yeah,
Um,
good one. Yeah.
yeah, cool. So you're kind of finishing up your book? Are you working on anything else right now?
Um, it's like I have some ideas cooking, and it's that thing of actually some things I'm really excited about, but I'm trying to like really finish the membrane before I
Yeah.
jump onto something else, or I'll never finish it. But yeah, the pulling on that thread of the sort of intersection of aviation and mysticism, that's something I'm interested in continuing with. And I'm actually simultaneously rereading Search of the Miraculous right now, but I'm also rereading The Right Stuff by Tom Wolfe, which is just such a fun,
Huh.
fast read. And it's, about the history of like the Mercury space program, but it starts with, talking about the test pilots at Edwards Air Force Base. And even that, he kind of invokes uh, this sort of mystical idea of, all these pilots are ascending this invisible pyramid, like all to be the best. And it's like Chuck Yeager is at the top, but like it's this imagery that he invokes in the first 100 pages all the time of like trying to get up the pyramid, which is just, yeah, just calls to mind all of this, like this sort of symbolism that Manly P. Hall talks about.
Yeah.
Um, but so yeah, that's like kind of one I'm kind of like slowly gathering information as that's kind of like cooking in the background. And then I've also been obsessed with this one Saint Christina the Astonishing, and I would like to do a project about her in the distant future. So I'm like making notes for that right now. But yeah, right now I gotta it's like membrane and then yeah, work on these
Yeah.
other projects. So
What's the deal with that saint? What about her?
so she lived in, I believe, Belgium in the 1100s, and when she was, I think, about 11 years old, she had an epileptic seizure and died, or everybody thought that she died. And you know, her, her body's in the casket in church. It's her funeral, and she bursts out of her casket and floats up to the roof of the church and scares the shit out of everybody. Um, After that, she says that she could smell the sin on everyone and was like disgusted by everybody, and took to like climbing up trees and living in the trees. And they said that when she talked, it sounded like her voice was coming from another place, which
Whoa.
is fascinating. And I guess there are there are I mean, the main record is this priest named Thomas D. Contemporary, who knew her and wrote kind of her biography and vouched for her, which is how she became a saint. But according to him, like she could not die. She was unkillable. Like she could cut herself and would not, it would heal, or like, yeah, she would just like,
Yeah.
she was unkillable. And so it's like when she came back from the dead, everybody was like, oh my God, what a miracle. And then she started doing these things and like kind of cursing everybody out and saying that she could smell the sin on them. And people went from like, what a miracle, to like, God, can you come get her? She's like, she's scaring us. So she was kind of ostracized after a while, and she started to like, she like lived with like street people and thieves for a long time. And then toward the end of her life, she ended up joining a convent, and she eventually did die.
Damn.
But I just find her, and so I think I'm fascinated with her because of there's kind of like this idea of like you have a spiritual awakening, and it kind of like makes you a stranger in your own life, which I feel like happened to her.
Yeah.
And on the one hand, it's tragic because she's ostracized, but on the other hand, she's like also liberated and doesn't have to like do anything that was like expected of a woman living in the 1100s. She's like free in a way. So,
Yeah.
but yeah,
Also
I
a
just,
pilot in a certain sense.
I guess also,
Yeah,
yeah,
true. Yeah.
yeah, she could fly. So, but yeah, I want to read the account of her, the Thomas D. Contemporary book, and then Nick Cave wrote a song about her. That's the other piece of
Hmm.
work I think that's like already out about her.
Wow.
But yeah, I'm like obsessed with her too. But that's like a project for down the road, is I'd like to
Yeah.
maybe make like a short film or something about her. So
Huh. That's great. I have to
yeah,
look into
that's
that.
Hmm.
yeah, she's cool.
Mm, yeah. So I guess we can wrap things up in a moment. If people want to keep track of what you're doing out there, where
Mm.
would they look?
Um, I feel like the easiest thing would be to check out my Instagram, which is Liminal Credential, all one word. And I have a link tree on there which links to, like the membrane and all the other projects. I've had like a little Patreon going for the membrane.
Cool.
Yeah, links to my website and the other things I have going on. So yeah, that's the easiest place to find everything is Instagram, Liminal Credential. And I haven't been posting a lot lately, but I'll probably be posting more later this year, and especially as I get closer to doing the Claire Pierpoint talk, I'll be posting more about that. And yeah.
Yeah, that's exciting. Yeah, I'm looking forward to learning more about her. I love those statues. They're crazy.
Oh yeah.
They're wonderful. Cool. And is there anything in the next, well, I don't know when we'll post this, but in the next couple weeks at PRS that any of our West Coast listeners might want to check out?
Oh, that's a good question. Let's see. I mean, I do a little bit of programming, but I've mostly like program creative workshops. On July 20th, we have a plant photography workshop, but it's with one of our PRS members. Her name's Teresa Morrison, and she uses all these like plant-based still developers, and she has all these antique photo papers. Some of them are from like the 1940s. So we're gonna walk around PRS and find plants and put them on the developing paper and use these plant-based developers to make these prints. And her prints are like really amazing. So yeah, it's like this. And then they just develop in the sun, which is cool. So yeah,
Nice.
I'm pretty interested in that. But yeah, I like booking the creative projects, creative workshops. I feel like it's especially that where it's so much related to, it's kind of like a record of that day, like the
Yeah.
weed that you find and what the sun is like that day and what paper yeah, like there's so much specific about you're creating like something frozen from that moment, which I guess goes back to the whole like, yeah, having a piece of work that's kind of like you plus time, like being kind of a
Right.
snapshot of a moment. So
Yeah, that's great. I want to do that. Um, cool. When I was there was a death cafe happening. Is that still
oh yeah.
happening?
Yeah, that's we have that a couple times a month. I think that actually happened today. Actually, we have it on like Tuesdays and Saturdays, a couple times a month. But it's yeah, like an opportunity to just share your feelings about death, whatever they may be.
Yeah.
That's
And
awesome.
they serve
Yeah,
tea and cookies also.
it's great.
So,
I feel like people
um,
need that a little bit for sure.
oh yeah,
Yeah.
totally. Yeah, there's like
Especially,
nowhere to. Yeah.
Yeah. When I was out there and I saw that, I thought it was like I was like really hungry and I thought I was like gonna pass out. So I saw it and I was like, oh, cafe. Oh no. But then you told me it was just like a group. And yeah, actually it was quite a lifesaver that you guys had chips and popcorn and stuff like that at the bookstore. So I just want to say that more more places should have small
Snacks.
snacks. Yeah, it's
Yeah.
very helpful for weary travelers. Um, cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, so thanks for coming on. And
Thank you both so much. This was great. Thank you.
yeah,
yeah, definitely. Thanks for coming on.
and this has been Consensus Unreality.